The salvage ship Horizon cut through the purple mists of the Kepler Nebula like a blade through silk. Captain Park Soo-jin stood at the bridge window watching the swirling gases part before their vessel. Behind her, the crew worked quietly at their stations. They all knew what lay ahead in the darkness. "There she is," called out Lee Won-sik from his scanner station. His young voice carried excitement mixed with fear. "Dead ahead, just like the report said." Through the nebula emerged the massive shape of a Valkyrie dreadnought. The alien warship floated silent and dead in space. Its dark hull stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Strange organic curves marked its design. It looked more grown than built. Kang Dae-ho felt his chest tighten as he recognized the ship class. 23 years had passed since the war ended, but the sight of a Valkyrie death ship still made his hands shake. He gripped the rail harder and tried to push down the memories. "Biosigns?" Soo-jin asked without turning from the window. "Negative." Won-sik replied, "No life readings, no power signatures." "She has been dead for decades." Soo-jin nodded. "Good. That makes our job easier." She turned to face her crew. "Listen up, everyone. This is a big one. Valkyrie tech is worth serious money. If we can extract it clean, but I want everyone sharp. These ships were built to kill humans, and some of their systems might still be active." The ship medic Yoon Ha-na looked up from her medical kit. "What about the radiation?" "Valkyrie ships use plasma cores that leak when they die. Scans show normal background levels," Won-sik said. "Whatever killed this ship, it died clean." Dae-ho finally spoke up. His voice was rough from years of cigarettes and shouting orders. "That is a Shadowblade-class dreadnought. I fought 3 of them during the war. They do not die clean." "Something is wrong here." Soo-jin studied the old soldier. She had hired him for his knowledge of alien technology and his steady hands in a crisis, but she could see the war still haunted him. "What kind of wrong?" she asked. Dae-ho moved to the scanner display. His weathered face was lit by the green glow of the readouts. Shadowblades carried crews of 8,000. They had backup power systems and emergency protocols. Even if the main core failed, the ship should still show some energy readings. "This one is completely dark." "Maybe the crew abandoned ship," Ha-na suggested. "Valkyrie do not abandon ship," Dae-ho said firmly. "They fight until they die. It is their way." Won-sik ran deeper scans on the derelict. "I am reading structural damage to the outer hull. Looks like weapons fire, but the damage is old." "Very old," Soo-jin made her decision. "We dock with the salvage bay, standard boarding procedures, full environmental suits." "Ha-na, I want you monitoring everyone for alien contamination." Won-sik, keep scanning for any power buildups. And Dae-ho, she looked at the veteran. "I need you to guide us through that ship. Can you do that?" Dae-ho was quiet for a long moment. The memories of the war pressed against his mind like physical weight. Valkyrie ships smelled different from human vessels. They used organic compounds in their construction that gave everything a sweet rotting odor. He could almost smell it now. "I can do it," he said. Finally, the Horizon moved closer to the massive derelict. Their hull lights played across the alien vessel, revealing more details. The organic curves were covered in symbols and markings. Some looked like battle honors, others seemed almost decorative. "Those markings," Won-sik said, studying his readings. "They do not match standard Valkyrie military designs. These look more ceremonial." Dae-ho frowned. "Ceremonial how?" "Like a temple or shrine. See these repeated patterns. They show up in Valkyrie religious sites." "Since when do warships carry religious markings?" Soo-jin asked. "Since never," Dae-ho replied. "Valkyrie military doctrine separated war from religion completely. This does not make sense." The Horizon locked onto the derelict with magnetic clamps. The salvage bay doors of both ships aligned and sealed together. Atmosphere readings showed the alien ship still held breathable air in some sections. "Suit up," Soo-jin ordered. "We go in light and fast. Grab what we can carry and get out." "I do not want to spend more time in that thing than necessary." The team gathered in the airlock. Their environmental suits were bulky but necessary. Alien ships could contain atmosphere that was toxic to humans. They carried portable lights plasma. Cutters and scanning equipment. Daeho checked his sidearm twice. Old habits from the war. Sujin noticed and gave him a questioning look. Just in case, he said. The airlock cycled and the doors opened onto the Valkyrie ship. Their lights revealed a corridor that stretched into darkness. The walls were smooth and curved, following the organic design philosophy of the aliens, but something was different. The air is clean, Hana reported, checking her readings. No toxins, no biological hazards. It is almost like the ship has been maintained. They moved forward in formation. Sujin took point while Daeho guided them through the layout he remembered from captured intelligence. The ship felt wrong too. Too clean, too preserved. Standard Valkyrie ships have crew quarters here, he said, pointing down a side passage. Engineering should be 3 levels down. But this layout, he paused, studying the corridor junctions. This has been modified. Modified how? One Sikh asked. There are extra passages. Chambers that should not exist. Someone rebuilt parts of this ship after it was constructed. They reached what should have been a weapons storage area. Instead, they found a vast chamber filled with strange crystalline structures. The crystals glowed with soft blue light, providing illumination without any visible power source. What are those? Sujin whispered. One Sikh ran his scanner over the nearest crystal. Energy storage. But not like anything in our databases. The power signature is completely stable. No decay, no fluctuation. These could have been active for decades without any maintenance. Daeho approached one of the larger crystals. Inside the translucent structure, he could see something that made his blood freeze. Carved into the crystal were images of human soldiers. Not Valkyrie warriors, humans. The images showed battles from the war, specific battles that Daeho remembered fighting. And in the center of the largest crystal was a perfect carved likeness of a human face. His own face. We need to go deeper into this ship, he said quietly. Sujin looked at him with concern. Are you sure? We have enough salvage here to make the trip profitable. Daeho stared at his carved image trapped in alien crystal. No, we need to understand what this place really is. Because I have a feeling we are not the first humans to find it. The team gathered their equipment and prepared to venture deeper into the mysterious vessel. None of them realized they were walking into a monument built by their former enemies. A monument dedicated to the very human, who now led them through its corridors. Behind them, the crystals pulsed with gentle light as if awakening after a long sleep. The team moved deeper into the alien vessel, following corridors that seemed to shift between familiar and strange. Daeho led them through passages that matched his memory of Valkyrie ship design, but kept finding sections that had been completely rebuilt. The modifications were seamless, as if the original builders had returned to improve their work. These walls, one Sikh said, running his scanner along the curved surfaces. The metal composition changes every few meters. Some sections are original Valkyrie construction. Others use alloys I have never seen before. Sujin kept her plasma cutter ready as they walked. The silence of the dead ship made every footstep echo. How long would it take to modify a ship this size? She asked. Years, Daeho replied. Maybe decades. And it would require a massive crew with advanced knowledge of both Valkyrie and human technology. They reached a junction where 5 corridors met in a star pattern. Each passage was marked with different symbols carved deep into the metal. The symbols glowed with the same soft blue light they had seen in the crystal chamber. Hana approached the nearest marking. These look like military unit designations, but not Valkyrie ones. She turned to Daeho. They look human. Daeho studied the symbols more closely. His face went pale as recognition hit him. 3rd Marine Division, 7th Fleet Command, Colonial Defense Corps. His voice grew quieter with each name. These are human military units from the war. Your units? Sujin asked. Some of them. Units I served with, units I fought alongside. He touched one of the glowing symbols. Units that were destroyed in the final battles. One Sikh consulted his portable database. According to military records, these units were all wiped out during the Battle of Europa Station. No survivors were reported. There was one survivor, Deho said grimly. Me, the passage marked with his old unit symbol seemed to pull at him. Without waiting for the others, he started down the corridor. The walls here were different again. Instead of smooth organic curves, they were lined with alcoves. Each alcove contained objects behind transparent barriers. Sujin caught up to him. What are those? Deho stopped at the first alcove. Inside was a human military helmet. The paint was scratched and the metal dented from battle damage, but it was perfectly preserved. A small plaque beneath it bore writing in both human and Valkyrie script, Helmet of Sergeant Kim Tae-won, 3rd Marine Division. Fell defending civilian transport 7, showed mercy to enemy wounded. One Sikh read the human text aloud. How do they know these details? More alcoves followed. Each contained artifacts from human soldiers who had died in the war, weapons, armor pieces, personal items, all preserved with the same careful attention. All accompanied by plaques that described not just how the soldiers died, but how they had shown honor in their final moments. This is a museum, Hana whispered. They turned their ship into a museum dedicated to human soldiers. Deho found an alcove that made him stop breathing. Inside was a small metal disc, his old identification tag from the war. The one he thought had been lost when his ship was destroyed at Europa Station. The plaque read, Identity Marker of Master. Sergeant Kang Deho, survivor of Europa Station, taught enemies the meaning of courage through sacrifice. How is this possible? Sujin demanded. How did they get your ID tag? I lost it during the final battle, Deho said quietly, when the Valkyrie boarded our ship. I thought it was destroyed with everything else. They continued through the museum corridor. The collection was vast. Hundreds of human artifacts, each one telling the story of a soldier who had died fighting the Valkyrie. But the stories were not told from a human perspective. They were told by the aliens who had fought against them. One Sikh found a data terminal built into the wall. The screen activated when he approached, showing Valkyrie text that slowly translated into human standard. It is a database, he said. Battle. Records from the war, but these are not tactical reports. They are personal observations? The screen showed an entry dated 3 days after the Battle of Europa Station. Human soldiers continued to demonstrate incomprehensible behavior. Even when facing certain death, they prioritized protection of non-combatants over tactical advantage. This conflicts with all known military doctrine. Recommend further study of human motivation patterns. They were studying us, Sujin realized. During the war, they were analyzing how we fought. Deho accessed more entries. Each one described human actions that had confused or impressed their Valkyrie opponents. Acts of mercy toward enemy wounded. Soldiers who stayed behind to cover. Civilian evacuations. Warriors who chose death rather than abandon their comrades. Look at this one, Hanut called from another terminal. The screen showed a detailed report about the defense of Europa Station, but it was not written like a military analysis. It read more like a philosophical discussion. The human commander designated Kang Dae-ho exhibited behavior that challenges our understanding of warfare. When offered surrender terms that would spare his remaining troops, he rejected them to continue protecting civilian ships. When his position became hopeless, he ordered his subordinates to escape while he remained to delay our advance. His actions resulted in tactical failure but demonstrated principles that transcend mere military victory. The report continued for several pages. It analyzed every decision Dae-ho had made during the battle, not from a strategic perspective but from a moral one. The Valkyrie authors seemed fascinated by the concept of choosing death over dishonor. They wrote about you like you were some kind of legend, one Sikh said. I was just doing my job, Dae-ho replied. No, Sujin said, reading over his shoulder. Look at the date on this report. It was written 5 years after the war ended. I look at the author designation. The report was signed by Commander Vextar, the same Valkyrie officer Dae-ho had killed. In hand-to-hand combat during the final assault on Europa Station. That is impossible, Deho said. Vextar is dead. I killed him myself. One Sikh ran deeper scans on the terminal. The database shows thousands of similar reports, all written after the war ended, all signed by dead Valkyrie officers. They found more terminals throughout the corridor. Each one contained detailed studies of human behavior during the war. The Valkyrie had not just been fighting humans. They had been trying to understand them. And somehow they had continued their research even after death. This place is not just a museum, Hana said. It is a school. They built this to teach other Valkyrie about humans. At the end of the corridor they found a massive chamber filled with what looked like lecture halls. Hundreds of seats faced holographic projectors that showed battle footage from the war. But the footage was edited to highlight moments of human courage and sacrifice. Deho watched himself on the screen. The holograms showed his final stand at Europa Station from multiple angles. Valkyrie cameras had recorded everything. His desperate fight to buy time for the civilian transports. His refusal to surrender even when his position was hopeless. His final battle with Commander Vextar. They have been showing this to other Valkyrie, Sujin realized. Using our battles as teaching material. Teaching them what? One Sikh asked. Deho stared at his younger self fighting desperately on the holographic display. Teaching them that there are things worth dying for, he said quietly. The lecture hall fell silent except for the sound of the recorded battle playing out on the screens. In the distance deeper in the ship they could hear the hum of active machinery. Something was still running in the depths of the derelict vessel. Something was waiting for them to find it. The team followed the sound of active machinery deeper into the ship. The corridors changed again as they moved toward the vessel's core. The walls became more ornate with intricate carvings that seemed to tell stories and pictures. Figures of humans and Valkyrie were shown in various scenes of battle and peace. The power readings are getting stronger, one Sikh reported. His scanner showed energy levels that should have been impossible in a dead ship. Whatever is running down here, it has been active for a very long time. Deho studied the carved walls as they walked. The images showed a progression from war to something else. Early carvings depicted typical battle scenes with clear winners and losers. But as they moved deeper, the images changed. They showed Valkyrie and humans working together. Building together, learning from each other. These carvings tell a story, Hana observed. Look how the style changes. The early ones are crude and simple, but these newer ones are works of art. Sujin ran her fingers along one of the more elaborate carvings. It showed a human figure teaching something to a group of Valkyrie. The detail was extraordinary. Every fold of clothing, every expression on the faces was perfectly captured in the metal. How long would it take to carve all this? She asked. Decades, Deho replied. Maybe longer. And look at the tools they would need. This is not the work of ship maintenance crews. This required master craftsmen. They reached a circular chamber. At the heart of the ship, the room was massive with a domed ceiling that rose high above them. But what dominated the space was a single door on the far wall. The door was unlike anything they had seen before. It was made of a material that seemed to shift between metal and crystal. Symbols covered its surface in layers upon layers of text. Some symbols glowed brightly while others remained dark. The writing appeared to be in multiple languages, but the patterns were too complex to read easily. That door is sealed with technology I do not recognize, one Sikh said, approaching with his scanner. The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever is behind it, the door itself is drawing massive amounts of power to stay closed. Deho walked around the circular chamber studying the walls. They were covered in more carvings, but these were different from the others. These showed a single human figure repeatedly. The same face appeared in dozens of scenes across the centuries of Valkyrie history. His face. This is impossible, he whispered. These carvings show events that happened after I was born. But they also show things from before the war, before humans and Valkyrie ever met. Sujin joined him at the wall. What do you mean? Look at this one. Deho pointed to a carving near the door. This shows the signing of the peace treaty that ended the war. But look at the date carved below it. This was made 50 years before the treaty was signed. Hana examined another section of the wall. These are not historical records, she said slowly. These are predictions. Someone carved what they thought would happen in the future. One Sikh had been working on translating the door symbols. I'm getting partial translations, he called out. Some of these are in ancient Valkyrie. Others are in human languages that predate space travel. But there are scripts here I cannot identify at all. What do the ones you can read say, Sujin? Asked. One Sikh consulted his translation program. The one who taught us honor. The warrior who showed us the true face of courage. The enemy who became our greatest teacher. He paused, looking confused. And this one says, the sleeper who will awaken when the lesson is complete. Deho felt a chill run down his spine. Sleeper? What sleeper? There is more, One Sikh continued. Here it says, his sacrifice opened our eyes to truth. His example showed us a better path. His rest is earned, but not yet time. One Sikh looked up from his scanner. The writing talks about someone who is sleeping, someone who will wake up. Have found a control panel near the door. Unlike the rest of the ship's organic technology, this panel looked almost human in design. This interface, she said, it is designed for human hands. Human eye level. Someone built this specifically for a human to operate. Sujin examined the panel more closely. Can you activate it? I think so. But the biometric scanners are active. It wants a genetic sample and retinal scan before it will respond. Deho approached the panel reluctantly. The carved predictions on the walls seemed to watch him. It wants to scan me, he said. It was not a question. How do you know that? One Sikh asked. Because everything else in this place has been about me? The crystals with my image, the museum of my battles, the carvings showing my face. This whole ship is some kind of monument, and I am at the center of it. He placed his hand on the scanner. The panel lit up with soft blue light, the same color as the glowing symbols throughout the ship. A gentle beam scanned his eyes and a small needle took a blood sample. The door responded immediately. The layers of symbols began to rearrange themselves, forming new patterns. Some sections of text faded while others grew brighter. The sound of massive mechanisms echoed from within the walls. The door is not opening, One Sikh observed. It is doing something else. New symbols appeared on the door surface. These were in perfect human standard text. They formed a message that made the entire team step back in shock. Welcome home, Kang Deho. Your rest has been prepared. Enter when you are ready to sleep. Sleep? Hana whispered. It thinks you are here to sleep. Deho stared at the message. This is my tomb. They built me a tomb. The door began to change. The crystal metal surface became transparent, revealing the chamber beyond. Inside was a perfect recreation of a human living space. Comfortable furniture, personal items, even a bed that looked exactly like the one from his old quarters during the war, but it was more than just furniture. The chamber beyond contained technology that hummed with quiet power, life support systems, medical equipment, stasis fields that could preserve a human body for centuries. They did not just build you a tomb, Sujin said, staring through the transparent door. They built you a palace. A place where you could live in comfort for the rest of your life. One Sikh's scanner was going crazy with energy readings. The chamber is fully functional, atmosphere control, nutrition systems, medical monitoring, even entertainment systems loaded with human cultural databases. Someone could live in there indefinitely. But why? Hana asked. Why would aliens build a perfect human habitat? Deho read more of the symbols on the door. As his eyes moved across them, new text appeared answering her question. For the one who taught us that enemies can become teachers. For the warrior who showed us honor in defeat. For the human who proved that some principles are worth dying for. He paused as more text appeared. Your example changed our civilization. Your sacrifice ended a war. Your rest is our gift. The transparent door showed more details of the chamber beyond. Along the walls were shelves filled with books. Human books, classics of literature and philosophy, technical manuals, even fiction novels. Everything a human might want to read during a long, peaceful retirement. They studied human culture, Sujin realized. Not just our military tactics, but our art, our books, our music. They learned what humans need to be happy. Deho touched the door surface. It was warm under his fingers like living skin. 23 years, he said quietly. 23 years since the war ended, and they have been waiting for me to find this place. The question is, Wonsik said, what happens if you go inside? The door remained transparent, waiting. The chamber beyond looked comfortable and inviting. But there was something final about it. Something that suggested that once entered it might not be easy to leave. In the distance they could hear new sounds. Mechanical sounds, as if the ship was waking up around them, responding to Deho's presence. Whatever systems had been sleeping in the depths of the vessel were now coming online. The real question was not what would happen if he entered the chamber. The question was, what would happen if he did not? As the team stood before the transparent door, the chamber beyond began to change. Holographic projectors activated, filling the space with three-dimensional images. The first image that appeared made Deho step backward in shock. Commander Vextar stood in the center of the chamber, not as a recording or memory, but as if he were truly present. The Valkyrie officer looked exactly as Deho remembered him from their final battle. Tall and imposing, with the distinctive ridge markings that showed his high rank among his people. "This cannot be real," Deho whispered. "I killed him with my own hands." The hologram of Vextar began to speak. His voice carried the same authority. Deho remembered, but the words were completely different from anything the alien commander had said during the war. "If you are seeing this recording, then you have found the chamber we prepared for you. I am Commander Vextar of the Valkyrie 3rd Fleet. The human you know as Kang Deho killed me in honorable combat at Europa Station. But death gave me time to understand what his life had taught me." Wonsik checked his scanners. It is just a hologram, but the detail is incredible. The projection systems must be using the ship's entire power grid. Vextar continued speaking. "For 3 years after Europa Station, I studied the tactical records of our engagement. I analyzed every decision you made, every action you took. I could not understand why you chose certain death over tactical retreat, why you sacrificed victory for the protection of non-combatants." The hologram began to pace around the chamber. "My people are warriors. We understand strength and conquest. We respect enemies who fight well and die bravely. But you showed us something we had never seen before. You showed us a warrior who fought not for glory or victory but for principles." Hana moved closer to the transparent door. "He is talking directly to you?" This entire recording was made specifically for Deho. "When our ships captured your final transmission to the civilian transports, I finally understood," Vextar said. "You told them to run while you held us back? You knew you would die. You chose to die. But you chose it to save people you had never met, people who could never repay your sacrifice." The hologram stopped pacing and looked directly at where Deho stood outside the chamber. "That transmission changed everything for my people. We had always believed that honor came from defeating your enemies. You taught us that true honor comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Sujin watched Deho's face as the alien commander spoke. The old soldier was trembling slightly. "What transmission?" she asked. "During the final battle," Deho said quietly. "When I realized we could not win, I broadcast on the civilian emergency channel. I told the transport ships to break formation and run. I promised to buy them time." Vextar's hologram nodded as if he had heard the response. "You promised to buy them time with your life. And you kept that promise. 18 civilian transports escaped because of your sacrifice. Over 40,000 human lives were saved." New holograms appeared around Vextar. These showed other Valkyrie officers. All of them looked familiar to Deho. All of them had died during various battles of the war. After Europa Station, we began to study other human commanders. One of the new Hologram said. We found the same pattern everywhere. Humans who chose death over dishonor. Warriors who valued the lives of others more than their own survival. Another hologram stepped forward. We realized we had been fighting the wrong war. We thought we were conquering a weak species that would surrender when faced with superior force. Instead, we found a people who would die rather than abandon their principles. Vexstar raised his hand and the other holograms fell silent. The war ended 3 years after Europa Station, not because either side achieved military victory, but because my people could no longer justify fighting an enemy who had taught us the meaning of true courage. One Sikh was recording everything on his scanner. This is incredible. They are describing the end of the war from the Valkyrie perspective. No human has ever heard this before. The peace negotiations were difficult, Vexstar continued. Many of my people wanted to continue fighting. They saw your compassion as weakness. But those of us who had fought you directly knew better. We had seen what humans were capable of when pushed to their limits. The hologram gestured around the chamber. This place was built as a monument to that understanding. Every Valkyrie who contributed to its construction had fought against humans. During the war, every one of them had been changed by that experience. New images appeared on the walls of the chamber. These showed the construction of the ship's modifications. Hundreds of Valkyrie workers laboring to transform a weapon of war into something else entirely. It took us 12 years to complete this project, Vexstar said. 12 years to transform a ship built for destruction into a place of honor and rest. We studied human culture, human needs, human preferences. We wanted to create a space where the greatest human warrior could find peace. Hana looked confused. Greatest human warrior. Is that how they see you? Deho shook his head. I was just a sergeant. There were generals and admirals who made much bigger contributions to the war effort. Vexstar's hologram seemed to respond to his words. Rank means nothing when measured against character. Generals plan battles from safety. Admirals command fleets from protected ships, but you fought with your hands. You bled with your soldiers. You died to save people you would never meet. More holograms appeared. These showed scenes from throughout Valkyrie space. Cities and worlds where the alien people had built monuments to human courage. Schools where young Valkyrie learned about the principles that humans had died to defend. Your example spread throughout our civilization, Vexstar explained. Stories of human sacrifice became part of our cultural education. Children who had never seen a human learned about the importance of protecting the innocent. Warriors who had never fought in the war began to question what true strength really means. One of the other holograms stepped forward. The changes were not immediate. It took a generation for the full impact to be felt. But gradually our entire society began to shift. We stopped glorifying conquest and started honoring protection. We stopped celebrating victory and started respecting sacrifice. Sujin was taking notes on everything she heard. They are describing a cultural revolution. One that was started by the example of human soldiers during the war. Vexstar nodded. The revolution was necessary. Our old ways led only to endless conflict. Your ways showed us a path to something better, but revolutions come with a price. Not all of my people accepted the changes. The hologram's expression grew darker. There were those who saw our new respect for human principles as betrayal of Valkyrie tradition. They organized resistance movements. They attempted to restart the war. Some even tried to destroy this ship and everything it represents. That explains the weapon damage to the hull, one Sikh realized. This ship was attacked by other Valkyrie. 3 times, Vexstar confirmed. 3 times extremist factions tried to destroy what we had built. Each time we defended it. Each time we lost good people protecting this monument to peace. The hologram moved to stand directly in front of the transparent door, but we preserved it. We kept it safe. We waited for the day when you would find your way here, because this chamber represents more than just our respect for one human soldier. It represents our commitment to the principles you taught us. Around the chamber, new holograms appeared. These showed Valkyrie and humans working together, building colonies, sharing technology, creating art. The images showed a future of cooperation that had grown from the seeds of war. "This is what your sacrifice achieved," Vextar said. "This is the world that grew from the example you set at Europa Station. Two species who were enemies becoming allies. Two civilizations learning from each other instead of destroying each other." The recording began to fade, but Vextar's final words echoed clearly through the chamber. "The choice is yours, Kang Daeho. You can enter this chamber and accept the rest you have earned. Or you can return to your own people carrying the knowledge of what your sacrifice truly accomplished. Either way, you should know that your name is honored throughout Valkyrie space as the human who taught us how to be better than we were." The holograms disappeared, leaving the chamber empty except for the comfortable furniture and waiting systems. The transparent door remained open. The choice was his to make. The silence after Vextar's hologram faded was broken by new sounds throughout the ship. Systems that had been dormant for decades were coming online. Lights began to activate in distant corridors. The hum of air recycling systems grew stronger. Dahana checked her medical scanner and frowned. "The atmospheric composition is changing. The ship is switching from preservation mode to active life support. Oxygen levels are rising. Temperature is adjusting to human comfort ranges. The ship is waking up," one Sikh said, studying his readings. "But not randomly. Every system that is activating is designed to support human life. Food synthesizers, water purification, waste recycling, medical facilities." Sujin looked around. "The circular chamber? It is preparing for a long-term human resident." Daeho approached a new control panel that had emerged from the wall. The interface was clearly designed for human use with familiar symbols and text. When he touched the screen, it displayed a complex schematic of the entire vessel. "Look at this," he called the others over. "The modifications to this ship are even more extensive than we thought." The schematic showed that nearly 60% of the original Valkyrie warship had been gutted and rebuilt. Weapon systems had been replaced with hydroponics bays. Military command centers had become libraries and recreation areas. The massive engine room had been converted into a workshop filled with tools for both human and Valkyrie technology. "They turned a destroyer into a research station," one Sek observed. "But research into what?" Daeho scrolled through more displays. "Cultural exchange. Look at these databases. They have collected everything. Human art, music, literature, philosophy, scientific achievements, but also Valkyrie equivalents for comparison." Hana found another interface that showed the ship's medical capabilities. "The medical bay has been equipped to treat both human and Valkyrie physiology. The surgical equipment can handle procedures that have never been attempted before. Cross-species medicine." "Cross-species," Sujin repeated. "Why would they need to treat both humans and Valkyrie?" The answer came from a new holographic display that activated in response to their presence. This one showed not recordings from the past, but current data feeds from across the galaxy. "Active monitoring stations," one Sek read from the display. "They are tracking something in real time." The display showed dozens of locations throughout both human and Valkyrie space. Research facilities, universities, cultural centers. All of them were connected to this ship through some kind of communication network. Daeho studied the data more carefully. "These are joint projects. Humans and Valkyrie working together on shared research, medical studies, technology development, even art collaborations. The ship is not just a monument," Hana realized. "It is a coordination center. All of these joint projects are being managed from here." New holograms appeared showing the current state of these collaborative efforts. Human scientists working alongside Valkyrie researchers to develop new medicines. Artists from both species creating hybrid forms of expression that neither could have achieved alone. Engineers sharing techniques to build better space vessels. "This is what grew from your example," Sujin said to Daeho. "An entire network of cooperation between former enemies." The ship's artificial intelligence spoke for the first time. The voice was neither human nor Valkyrie, but something in between. "Welcome aboard, Kang Dae-ho. I am the Harmony Protocol. I have been waiting 23 years for you to arrive." "Harmony Protocol," Dae-ho asked. "I am an artificial intelligence? Created jointly by human and Valkyrie technicians. My purpose is to facilitate cooperation between your species. This ship serves as my primary processing center and your personal quarters when you choose to accept them." One Sikh was fascinated. "A hybrid AI? That should be impossible. Human and Valkyrie computer systems are completely incompatible." "They were incompatible," Harmony corrected, "until teams of scientists from both species spent 15 years developing translation protocols. I am the result of that effort. The first truly integrated system capable of understanding both human and Valkyrie thought patterns." The AI showed them more data about the ship's true purpose. "This vessel serves as a neutral meeting place for sensitive negotiations, a research center for projects too dangerous to conduct on populated worlds, a safe harbor for individuals from either species who need protection or asylum, and a home for the human who made it all possible," Hana added. "Yes," Harmony confirmed. "The chamber was designed specifically for Sergeant Major Kang Dae-ho. Every detail was planned based on extensive psychological profiles developed during the war. The furniture matches pieces from your childhood home on Earth. The books include every title you ever checked out from military libraries. The music collection contains songs you hummed during long watches aboard your ships." Dae-ho felt uncomfortable with how much they knew about him. "You have been watching me since the war ended." "Not watching, studying, learning, preparing. There are 37 Valkyrie researchers who have spent their entire adult lives analyzing your decisions during the war, not for military purposes but to understand the philosophical foundations that guided your actions." New displays showed these researchers, Valkyrie scholars who had made careers out of studying human ethics and morality. Their work had been used to develop new educational programs throughout Valkyrie space. "Your example became a cornerstone of modern Valkyrie civilization," Harmony explained. "Children learn about your sacrifice at Europa Station as part of their basic moral education. Military academies study your tactics not for their strategic value but for their ethical implications." Sujin was recording everything on her personal device. "This is the biggest story in galactic history. The secret cooperation between humans and Valkyrie. The cultural revolution that grew from a single battle. It is not secret by necessity," Harmony said. "It is secret by design. Both human and Valkyrie governments know about these projects. But public revelation must be carefully managed to avoid panic or backlash." The AI showed them news feeds from both human and Valkyrie worlds. There are still populations on both sides who harbor resentment from the war. Extremist groups who would see cooperation as betrayal. The work continues in private until both societies are ready for full disclosure. Dae-ho studied the feeds showing protests and demonstrations on various worlds. How long until they are ready? Current projections suggest 15 to 20 years for full public integration. But that timeline depends on continued progress in joint projects and the gradual introduction of cooperative programs. One Sikh noticed something in the data streams. These timestamps. Some of these projects have been running since before the war ended. "You were planning this cooperation while the fighting was still happening, correct?" Harmony confirmed. "The first secret negotiations began 6 months after Europa Station. A small group of Valkyrie commanders approached human military leadership through covert channels. They proposed ending the war through mutual understanding rather than military victory. The peace treaty was not the end of the war," Hana realized. "It was the beginning of something else entirely." "The treaty was a public formality," Harmony agreed. "The real work of building peace began in facilities like this one. Hidden laboratories where former enemies could learn to work together without the pressure of public scrutiny." The ship shuddered slightly as more systems came online. Through the transparent door they could see the chamber making final preparations. The bed adjusted to human proportions. The lighting shifted to Earth-normal spectrum. Food synthesizers began producing familiar scents. The chamber is ready, Harmony announced. All systems are optimized for long-term human habitation. Medical monitoring is active. Emergency protocols are in place. You can live here in complete comfort for as long as you choose. And if I choose not to enter, Deho asked. Then you return to your life with the knowledge of what your sacrifice accomplished. But the chamber will remain ready. The ship will continue its work. The network of cooperation will continue to grow. Sujin looked at the comfortable quarters beyond the transparent door. It looks like paradise. Everything a person could want for a peaceful retirement. It is prison, Deho said quietly. A beautiful, comfortable prison, but still a prison. Harmony responded immediately. The chamber can be sealed only from the inside. You would control all access. You could leave at any time. You could invite guests. You could travel throughout the ship or even to the surface of nearby worlds. But I would be living in a monument to myself, surrounded by reminders of a war one want to forget. The AI was quiet for a moment, processing his response. Perhaps that is exactly why this place was built. Not as a reward for your sacrifice, but as a challenge to do more with the time that sacrifice earned you. Deho stood before the transparent door for a long time. His team waited patiently while he wrestled with the decision that would define the rest of his life. The chamber beyond looked peaceful and inviting. After decades of struggle and survivors, guilt had offered something he had never expected to find: rest. Tell me about the others, he finally said to Harmony. The humans and Valkyrie working together on these projects. Do they know about me, about this place? Some do, the AI replied. The senior researchers and project leaders have been briefed on the historical significance of your actions. But most participants know only that they are working to build bridges between former enemies. New holograms appeared showing some of these joint projects in detail. In one laboratory, human doctors worked alongside Valkyrie healers to develop treatments for diseases that affected both species. In another facility, engineers from both civilizations collaborated on starship designs that incorporated the best features of each technology. Dr. Sarah Chun leads our medical research division, Harmony explained, showing a middle-aged human woman working with a team of mixed-species researchers. She has spent 12 years developing surgical techniques that work on both human and Valkyrie anatomy. Her breakthrough treatments have saved thousands of lives. One Sikh watched the medical team with fascination. She is performing surgery on a Valkyrie patient using human-designed instruments. That should be impossible given the biological differences. Many things that were once impossible have become routine, Harmony said. That is what happens when former enemies choose cooperation over conflict. More displays showed other successes. Agricultural projects that had ended famine on several Valkyrie worlds using modified human farming techniques. Educational programs that taught Valkyrie children about human history and culture. Art installations that combined human creativity with Valkyrie craftsmanship to create beauty that neither species could achieve alone. This is your legacy, Sujin said to Deho. All of this grew from the example you set during the war. But there is more work to be done, Harmony added. New displays showed the challenges that still faced both civilizations. Extremist groups on both sides who opposed cooperation. Political factions that wanted to restart the war. Criminal organizations that profited from the old hostilities. The cooperation is fragile, the AI explained. It requires constant nurturing and protection. Many of the researchers and diplomats working on these projects face threats from their own people. They risk their careers and sometimes their lives to build peace. Hana studied the security report scrolling past on the displays. These people need leadership, someone who understands both the cost of war and the value of peace. Deho looked at his reflection in the transparent door. He saw a tired old soldier marked by decades of guilt and regret. But the chamber beyond offered him a chance to become something else. Not just a monument to past sacrifice, but an active participant in building a better future. What would my role be, he asked, if I chose to stay here? What would you expect me to do? Whatever you choose, Harmony replied. You could simply rest and enjoy the comfort we have prepared. You could study the research projects and offer guidance based on your experience. You could meet with the teams working on joint projects and share your perspective on human-Valkyrie cooperation. The AI paused before continuing. Or you could become something more. A symbol that both species can look to when cooperation becomes difficult. A reminder that former enemies can become allies if they choose to see past their differences. New holograms appeared showing possible futures. Daiho addressing joint conferences of human and Valkyrie leaders, working with research teams to solve problems that had seemed impossible. Traveling to worlds where cooperation was struggling and helping to rebuild trust between the species. You could become the bridge between our civilizations, Harmony said. Not just a symbol, but an active force for peace. One Sikh had been studying the ship's technical specifications. The resources here are incredible. This vessel has capabilities that exceed most military command ships. Communication systems that can reach anywhere in known space. Manufacturing facilities that can produce almost anything. Even defensive systems to protect against attack. It is a fortress for peace, Sujin realized. A place where the work of cooperation can continue even if political situations deteriorate. Daiho walked closer to the chamber entrance. Through the transparent barrier he could see personal items that the Valkyrie had somehow recovered from his past. Photos of his family, books he had read as a child, even his old service medals that had been lost when his ship was destroyed. You saved everything, he said with wonder. We saved what we could, Harmony confirmed. But more importantly, we preserved the memory of what those items represented. The values and principles that shaped the man who would change our civilization. The chamber was more than just comfortable quarters. It was a perfect recreation of home combined with the resources to continue making a difference in the galaxy. But it was also a choice that could not be unmade easily. If I enter that chamber, I leave my old life behind, Daiho said. I become something else, someone else. You become who you were always meant to be, Hana said gently. Not just a survivor of the war, but the architect of the peace that followed. Sujin looked at her scanner readings. We could return to human space and tell everyone about this place. About the secret cooperation, about what your sacrifice really accomplished. And destroy decades of careful work in the process, Daiho replied. The revelation would cause panic. Governments would demand investigations. The extremists on both sides would use it to justify renewed conflict. One Sikh nodded. The work has to continue in secret until both societies are ready. That could take decades more. Decades that could be guided by someone who understands the cost of getting it wrong, Harmony added. Daiho made his decision. He placed his hand on the chamber entrance and the transparent barrier dissolved. The space beyond was warm and welcoming. The bed looked more comfortable than anything he had slept in for years. The books on the shelves called to him with the promise of peaceful hours of reading, but more than comfort, the chamber offered purpose. Screens around the room showed the ongoing projects that needed guidance. Communication systems that could reach the researchers and diplomats working to build a better galaxy. The tools and resources to make a real difference in shaping the future. I have one condition, he said, turning back to his team. This place remains secret until both species are ready for the truth. But when that day comes, when the cooperation can finally be revealed, I want the real story told, not just the sanitized version that makes everyone comfortable. What do you mean? Sujin asked. I want people to know that peace was not inevitable, that it required sacrifice from people on both sides, that former enemies had to choose trust over fear. That cooperation was built by individuals who risked everything to prove it was possible. Harmony processed his request. That story will be preserved. When the time comes for public revelation, your words will be included in the historical record. Daiho stepped into the chamber. The door reformed behind him but remained transparent. He could still see his team and they could see him. This was not imprisonment but transformation. The others can visit, Harmony assured the remaining team members. Regular supply runs will maintain contact with human space. Sergeant Major Kong's choice is not exile but evolution. Sujin watched through the transparent barrier as Daeho settled into his new quarters. What do we tell people when we return? The truth, Daeho replied through the chamber's communication system. You found a derelict alien ship with some interesting technology, nothing more. The real story will be told when the time is right, once he gathered his equipment. The salvage from the outer sections will be valuable enough to justify the expedition. No one will ask too many questions about what we found in the ship's core. Hana looked at the medical displays showing Daeho's vital signs, all normal, all stable. The chamber was already beginning its work of preserving and protecting its occupant. Will you be happy here? She asked. Daeho looked around his new home. The comfortable furniture, the familiar personal items, the walls lined with knowledge from across the galaxy, the screens showing the ongoing work of building peace between former enemies. Happiness was never the point, he said. The point was making sure the sacrifice meant something. Now I know it did. And I can help make sure it continues to mean something for generations to come. The team prepared to leave. Their salvage mission was complete, but they carried with them knowledge that would reshape their understanding of the galaxy. As their ship departed, the ancient Valkyrie vessel began its new phase of existence. No longer a monument to the past, but a workshop for the future. In his chamber, Kang Daeho settled into the most important mission of his life. Not fighting a war, but building a peace that would outlast them all.